So what we're going to do today is work a little bit with a few different materials. First thing I'm starting with is just some blank paper. Now this particular paper is a little bit of a heavier gauge. Whatever paper you choose to use for your class, just consider the element of sheen on that paper. If it's a white paper and it's got kind of a sheen to it, it's not going to be as successful when we do our paint wash on it. So you're looking for a thicker bit of paper. Stay away from newsprint and anything that's thinner like that. Taking a look at this, what I've got here is my watercolor pencils. Definitely not something you need to use in the classroom. For me, this is what I'll be using, but any kind of liquid tempera paint or even the block paints, you're just looking to use more of a wash, so more water, less paint. Next on the multimedia bend, we've got these chalk pastels here. Absolutely an option, making sure, of course, not to use them until the paint wash is absolutely dry. Then we've got some oil pastels. Now I've got both of them here. You certainly don't need to use both oil and chalk. I would choose either. I think you might find that the oil pastel is a little bit more successful with the student work, giving you a chance to work on your images when they're almost dry as opposed to absolutely dry. You're going to get a different result from these. But I would say go ahead and experiment. Have the students try both options if you've got both and see which ones they like better. Lastly, I'll be using some charcoal pencil. Now, I have a pencil here, but you certainly are more than welcome to use the charcoal sticks or even charcoal vines. Anything you've got that's going to be a strong black contrast. In fact, in some cases, it's fine to use a black permanent marker. You may find, though, if you use the oil pastels with a black permanent marker, there's going to be sections that it's not going to want to stand on top of, so to speak. Okay, let's get started. So just to get started today, I'm going to start with just a pencil, regular pencil from the classroom desk. In fact, mine's a little golden glittery, isn't that fun? Okay, all that we're going to do is make a simple circle. With that circle, we're going to use some of the media to turn it into a sphere and have a little quick study on form and dimension. Of course, I've got my horizon line in the background. Quick circle, let's get started. So all we're looking to do is paint just lightly around this circle here, and you can see that I've got a lot more water than I've got color. And I'm just going to leave a little bit of this circle almost white over here, indicating that the light source is coming from this direction, and on this side a little bit darker, so I might use a little bit more paint there, but again, not very dark at all. And we're just going to wait a little while for that to dry to move on to the next step. Now if you look closely, before everything's totally dried, I've gone back in with a blue. I started out with green, and I've gone back in here with a blue color just to get a variation so it's not so simple and plain, especially if we're going to be using multimedia with other materials and lots of other colors. So again, I've used a green and a blue. Students can use any colors they like as long as they're kind of analogous. So maybe orange and yellow and red, colors that go together on the color wheel. Seem to work best, and you want to keep them fairly light, a lot more water than paint, and again remembering about a light source, so a dark area and a lighter area. Okay, so we've had a little bit of time for this now what looks like a sphere to dry. Again, it doesn't take very long, and in fact, if you have hand dryers at your school, you can have the students run in and just give it a little drying. Being careful, of course, not to let the color run off out from the shape. And if you blot a little bit with paper towel or napkin, you'll find that that lifts the color right up, so careful not to do that. But you could do it maybe in the area where you've got some lighter colors happening, indicating the light source. Next thing we're going to do is work with pastels. Now I'm going to work with oil pastels today. They seem to give a solid, lighter, I shouldn't say lighter, area that's on top of the wash. When you use chalk, it does the same, but for me, I like to use oil because I'm going to go back in it later with that charcoal, and it's going to give a nice strong contrast. If you use chalk pastel, you'll see, let's choose a color here, you'll see that it's got kind of a nice solid color to it, but it can be blended. Whereas if you go with the same kind of color in an oil pastel, you're going to get a strong color, not blending as well and as nicely. So it's kind of the look that you're looking for. I'm going to work with, I'm going to work with this blue color right here. So when I do, what I'm trying to cause is that real look of form to happen. So I'm going to start along this outside bottom area here, because I've already indicated this is my light source with the lighter paint wash. And I'm just going to go in, and again, following the shape of the circle and darker to lighter along the way. So dark to light. If you want to, what works well in a classroom is to have spheres from the math kit or marbles, any kinds of a round surface and object, and having a light source on it. Definitely a light source on it could be from the overhead projector, flashlights in the classroom, even just sitting them on the ledge in the windowsill and having the light reflect on there. It works well. So I've got a blue color here, and I'm going to go ahead and use some more green again, and I'm going to put that right over top of this color here. And again, there's no right or wrong in terms of color choice as long as you're basically analogous. I happen to have these colors here handy, and I'm going to go with this. But students can make any choices they like. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow and give it even a lighter area in there. Very simple, very straightforward. Keeping in mind the general shape, you can almost do a spiral, so lighter to medium to darker in color tone. Again, the darkest areas being down around here. I'm going to leave it at that for now, and I'm going to keep those lines in that fashion. Definitely if I'm doing multimedia, I could use some different lines and some character into that, but at this point, we want students to really learn how to develop form. I'm going to go ahead and take my chalk pastel out, charcoal pencil out, and really go in underneath that shape and give it a real black contrast in there. And what I'm going to do is start to trace around it, but you can see that up here I've not traced, and very lightly when I have, whereas down here I'm okay to give it a real strong line. Now you can see there's nothing important about being neat and tidy in this one, because what we're working for is a real concept of gestural drawing. This is step one in learning how to do gestural drawings, which is the goal for today. So this is kind of a mini lesson to happen in the beginning. Right there is my horizon line, and quite simply, that's a finished product for me. You've got a definite sphere sitting in front of you with a horizon line, so in a space, in a sense, and it took a matter of seconds to do so. So there you go. Give it a shot with that first. Have students create many spheres on their table if you'd like to really develop, on their paper if you'd like to really develop the sense of form, and you'll be all set. Now here we are ready to start the gestural drawings. Now students in this particular activity have already gone through what some basic ideas are in our project, and that would be that number one, they understand we're starting with a border. We've always got a horizon line in consideration, so I can go ahead and just lightly place something in there. And then in this particular activity, we're talking about real movement and animation to do gestural drawings. So for this particular one, I'm going to go ahead and use the part where the students had their hands up, and what they were really emanating was the political gesture of, I agree, I'm voting, my opinion matters, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and show just basically how to get that real gestural effect in there. So what I'm going to do first is give the shape of a hand. So I already know that the palm has got a certain shape to it, that my fingers are going to have a certain shape, my thumb is going to be at a certain level. So in order to do that, I can very quickly just sketch in. Everybody knows the basic shape of a hand. What they don't always know is how to get there very quickly. So this almost looks like a paw in this instance, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is develop it further as we go along. So we know each finger has a little set of lines that goes across it and has a definite movement, and you want to get that element in there quickly, and definitely not perfect, because we're going to be going over this again with multimedia just like we did in the first portion of this video. Here's my thumb, and always just go ahead and use your own hand right beside this if this is what you're working on. Not a problem at all. And there we go. We've got hand in place, making a quick gesture. Any gestural drawing should be very quick in how you make it. Certainly not perfect and got these kind of almost scribble lines, because you're not even really lifting your pencil up from the paper. So in this particular case, I've got one hand in the front, but I want to have several hands to make the point that we all have a vote and we all have a say. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.